What happens when a beloved celebrity walks into what should be a friendly talk show appearance, only to face an ambush from a host who thinks the cameras give him permission to say anything? In just 37 seconds of shocking cruelty, Bill Maher would destroy years of carefully built respect and reveal himself as the petty tyrant hiding behind his desk. Chrissy Teigen walked onto that real-time set, expecting the usual banter. She had been on countless shows before. The cookbook, author, model, and social media personality was used to playful interviews. She came prepared to talk about her latest projects, maybe share a few laughs, and give the audience what they wanted. What she got instead was a masterclass in how power corrupts even the smallest kings. The studio lights were hot that night. The audience settled in for what they thought would be another typical Friday evening with Bill Maher. His show had been running for years, built on his reputation for being edgy, unfiltered, and willing to say what others would not. But there is a difference between being provocative and being cruel. There is a line between challenging guests and humiliating them. Bill Maher was about to cross that line in spectacular fashion. Chrissy sat down in the guest chair, adjusting her dress and smiling at the crowd. She waved to a few familiar faces in the audience. The warm studio lights caught her perfectly styled hair, and for a moment, everything seemed normal. She had done this dance 100 times before. Chat with the host, promote whatever project brought her there, maybe get into a light debate about something trending on social media. Easy money. But Bill Maher had other plans. He shuffled his cards on the desk, that familiar smirk already forming on his face. The audience could sense something different in his energy that night. Maybe it was the way he kept glancing at his notes, or how his usual pre-show jokes had an extra edge to them. Whatever it was, the people in that studio were about to witness something they had never seen before. The interview started innocently enough. Bill welcomed Chrissy with his standard opening line, the kind of generic host speak that fills time before the real conversation begins. She responded with grace, thanking him for having her on the show. Her voice was warm, genuine, the kind of tone that made millions of people follow her online. She was being herself, which was exactly what made what happened next so shocking. Bill leaned back in his chair, that calculated casualness that hosts use to make guests feel comfortable. But his eyes told a different story. They had a hardness to them, a glint that suggested he was already thinking about his next move. Chrissy did not notice it at first. Why would she? She was there to have a conversation, not to defend herself in a courtroom. The first few questions were standard fare. How was she doing? What brought her to Los Angeles? The usual small talk that audiences expect. Chrissy answered each question with enthusiasm, her natural charisma filling the room. She made jokes that landed well with the crowd. She was doing exactly what a good guest should do, giving the host material to work with while keeping things entertaining. But then, something shifted. Bill's tone changed first, subtle enough that most viewers probably missed it. His questions became more pointed, more personal. He started digging into topics that had nothing to do with why Chrissy was supposedly there. It was like watching a friendly conversation turn into an interrogation, one uncomfortable question at a time. Chrissy handled it well at first. She deflected the awkward moments with humor, tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground. She was being professional, doing what any experienced guest would do when faced with a host going off script. But Bill Maher was just getting started. He had decided that this was his moment to make a statement, and Chrissy Teigen was going to be his target whether she liked it or not. The audience began to shift in their seats. You could feel the energy in the room changing. What started as anticipation for a fun interview was becoming something else entirely. People were glancing at each other, wondering if what they were seeing was really happening. The warm atmosphere that had filled the studio was cooling fast, replaced by a tension that made everyone uncomfortable. Bill kept pushing. Each question became more aggressive than the last, each comment more inappropriate. He was using his position as host like a weapon, knowing that Chrissy had to sit there and take it if she wanted to maintain her professionalism. It was a power play, pure and simple. He had the home field advantage, the audience, the cameras, and he was going to use every bit of leverage he had. Chrissy tried to laugh it off, but you could see the strain starting to show. Her smile became more forced, her responses more guarded. She was still trying to be the gracious guest, but Bill was making it impossible. He was pushing her toward a breaking point, and everyone in that studio could feel it coming. The worst part was how calculated it all seemed. This was not Bill having a bad night or losing his temper. This was deliberate. He had made a choice to humiliate his guest on national television, and he was executing that plan with surgical precision. Every cutting remark, every inappropriate question, every moment of manufactured controversy was building towards something bigger. And then it happened. The moment that would define the entire interview, the comment that would cross every line of decency and professionalism. Bill Maher opened his mouth and said something so outrageous, so completely inappropriate, that it changed everything. In 37 seconds, he went from controversial host to complete villain, and there was no going back. Bill leaned forward with that predatory grin that his longtime viewers knew all too well. The studio lights seemed to dim everything except for his face, like a spotlight on evil itself. He had been building up to this moment since Chrissy sat down, and now he was ready to deliver the blow that would shatter any pretense of civility. "You know what I find interesting about you, Chrissy?" he began, his voice dripping with false curiosity. "You built this whole brand around being relatable, being just like everyone else. But let's be honest here. You married a rich musician, you live in a mansion, and you spend more on a single dinner than most people make in a month. So tell me, how exactly are you still playing the victim card?" The audience went silent. You could hear a pin drop in that studio. Chrissy's face changed instantly, the practiced smile vanishing as she processed what had just happened. This was not a question. This was an attack, and everyone knew it. "I'm sorry, what?" Chrissy said, her voice steady but with an edge that had not been there before. "I've never claimed to be a victim of anything. I don't know where you're getting that from." Bill waved his hand dismissively, like he was swatting away her response. "Come on, don't play dumb. Every time someone criticizes you online, you turn it into this whole thing about bullying and mental health. You act like you're some kind of martyr, when really you're just someone who can't handle the fact that not everyone worships you." The cruelty in his voice was unmistakable now. This was not comedy. This was not provocative television. This was a grown man using his platform to tear down a guest who had done nothing to deserve it. Chrissy sat there, clearly trying to process how the conversation had taken such a dark turn so quickly. "Bill, I think you might have me confused with someone else," she said, still maintaining her composure despite the obvious shock. "I've been pretty open about my struggles, but I've never positioned myself as a victim. I just try to be honest with people about what life is really like." But Bill was not interested in her explanation. He was on a roll now, feeding off the uncomfortable energy in the room like some kind of emotional vampire. "Honest? You want to talk about honest? Let's talk about how you deleted thousands of tweets after people started digging into your past. Let's talk about how you built a career off being mean to other people online and then cried about it when it came back to bite you." The audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats. This was beyond awkward television. This was a public execution, and they were being forced to watch. Some people were looking around, wondering if they should leave. Others were staring at the floor, too embarrassed to watch what was happening on stage. Chrissy's composure was starting to crack, but not in the way Bill probably expected. Instead of breaking down, she was getting angry. "You know what, Bill? I came here tonight to talk about my cookbook and maybe have a few laughs. I didn't come here to be ambushed by someone who clearly has some kind of personal issue with me that I'm not even aware of." "Personal issue?" Bill laughed, but it was a cold, mean sound. "I don't have a personal issue with you. I have an issue with hypocrisy. I have an issue with people who build careers off manufactured authenticity and then get upset when someone calls them out on it." "Called out on what exactly?" Chrissy shot back, her voice rising slightly. "What have I done that's so terrible? What crime have I committed that makes you think it's okay to sit here and attack me on your show?" Bill leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the confrontation he had created. "You really want to know? Fine. You spent years being nasty to people online, making cruel jokes about celebrities, participating in cancel culture, and now you want to rebrand yourself as this wholesome cookbook, author, and family woman. You can't have it both ways." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Chrissy stared at him for a long moment, and you could see her making a decision. She could continue to try to be professional, continue to take his abuse with grace, or she could stand up for herself. The choice was written all over her face. "You know what's really interesting, Bill?" she said, her voice now completely steady and ice cold. "You're sitting here lecturing me about being mean to people online, while you're literally being mean to me right now, on television, in front of all these people. You want to talk about hypocrisy? Look in a mirror." The audience began to murmur. Some people were nodding in agreement with Chrissy. Others were looking at Bill with obvious disappointment. He had crossed a line, and everyone could see it except apparently him. But instead of backing down, Bill doubled down. Oh, so now I'm the bad guy for asking tough questions? This is exactly what I'm talking about. The second someone challenges you, you flip it around and make them the villain. It's textbook manipulation. Tough questions? Chrissy's voice cracked with disbelief. You're not asking me tough questions, Bill. You're attacking me. There's a difference between journalism and bullying, and right now you're clearly confused about which one you're doing. The tension in the room was becoming unbearable. Even the camera operators seemed uncomfortable, unsure whether they should keep filming or look away. This was supposed to be entertainment, but it had become something much darker and more personal. Bill shuffled through his cards again, that smirk still plastered on his face, like he was proud of what he had accomplished. Look, I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking. Someone had to call you out eventually. Might as well be me. Call me out for what? Chrissy demanded, her patience finally reaching its limit. For being human? For making mistakes and learning from them? For trying to do better? What exactly is your point here, Bill? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you brought me on your show just so you could tear me down for your own entertainment. The accuracy of her observation seemed to hit Bill like a slap. For the first time since the interview started, his confidence wavered slightly, but instead of apologizing or backing down, he made the choice that would define his legacy forever. He decided to go nuclear. You know what your real problem is, Chrissy? He said, his voice taking on a tone so vicious it made everyone in the studio flinch. You're just another privileged celebrity who thinks being pretty and married to someone famous makes you important. You contribute nothing meaningful to the world, but you expect everyone to treat you like you're some kind of treasure. Well, newsflash, you're not special. You're just another attention-seeking influencer who got lucky. The words hit the studio like a bomb. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Bill seemed surprised by his own cruelty, but it was too late. He had said it, the cameras had caught it, and there was no taking it back. In 37 seconds of pure venom, he had revealed himself to be everything that was wrong with celebrity culture. Everything that was toxic about using fame as a weapon. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Chrissy sat there, absorbing the full weight of what Bill had just said to her on national television. Her face went through a series of emotions: shock, hurt, anger, and then something else entirely. Something that looked like clarity. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but carried more power than all of Bill's shouting combined. Wow, okay, so this is who you really are. She stood up slowly, with the kind of dignity that cannot be taught or faked. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, like she was drawing strength from some deep well of self-respect that Bill's words could not touch. The studio lights caught her face as she turned to look directly at him, and what the audience saw there was not the broken woman Bill had been trying to create. It was someone who had just realized exactly how small her attacker really was. You know, Bill, I came here tonight thinking you were someone worth talking to, someone who might actually have something interesting to say. But what you just showed everyone in this room, everyone watching at home, is that you're just a bitter old man who gets his kicks from trying to tear down people who threaten you. Bill tried to interrupt that familiar smirk, faltering for the first time. Now wait a minute, No. Chrissy's voice cut through his excuses like a knife. You don't get to talk now. You had your chance to be a decent human being, and you chose cruelty instead. You chose to use your platform, your show, your power, to try to humiliate someone who did nothing to you except show up and be herself. The audience was completely captivated now. This was not the breakdown Bill had been hoping for. This was something far more powerful, a person discovering their own strength in real time. Chrissy was not just defending herself, she was exposing him. You want to talk about what I contribute to the world? She continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. I'll tell you what I don't contribute. I don't contribute to the kind of toxic masculinity that makes men like you think you can say whatever you want to women just because you have a microphone. I don't contribute to the culture of cruelty that you seem to think is entertainment. Bill was squirming in his chair now, clearly realizing that his ambush had backfired spectacularly. He had expected Chrissy to cower, to break down, to give him the vulnerable moment he could exploit for his own entertainment. Instead, she was dismantling him piece by piece in front of his own audience. And you know what else I contribute? Chrissy asked, but it was clearly rhetorical. I contribute honesty. I contribute authenticity. I show people that it's okay to make mistakes, to learn from them, to grow as a person, but apparently that threatens you so much that you felt the need to attack me for it. The camera operators were getting shots they had never expected. This was not just good television. This was a masterclass in how to handle a bully. Chrissy was not just standing up for herself. She was standing up for everyone who had ever been in her position. "You called me an attention-seeking influencer," she said, taking a step closer to his desk. "But what do you call this? What do you call bringing someone onto your show just so you can tear them down? If that's not attention-seeking, I don't know what is." Bill tried to regain control of the situation. "Look, this is just how interviews work. If you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye." Chrissy actually laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Tough questions? Bill, you didn't ask me a single question about my work, my projects, or anything I actually came here to discuss. You just spent the last 10 minutes trying to destroy me as a person. That's not journalism. That's just sad." The truth of her words was hitting everyone in that studio like a physical force. Bill had indeed spent the entire interview attacking her character instead of engaging with her as a professional. He had turned what should have been a promotional appearance into a personal assault. "And the really pathetic part," Chrissy continued, now fully in control of the room, "is that you think this makes you look tough. You think attacking someone who came here in good faith makes you some kind of hard-hitting interviewer. But all it does is show everyone watching that you're threatened by successful women." Bill's face was turning red now, whether from anger or embarrassment was unclear. "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" Chrissy demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you decided before I even sat down that you were going to try to humiliate me. Did it make you feel good, Bill? Did it make you feel powerful to use your show as a weapon against someone who thought she was your guest?" The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. This was raw, real television, but not the kind Bill had been trying to create. This was justice happening in real time. Chrissy looked out at the audience, then back at Bill. "You know what the saddest part of all this is? You had a chance tonight to have a real conversation with someone. You could have asked me about my cookbook, about my family, about my work. You could have learned something. Instead, you chose to reveal exactly who you are to everyone watching." She picked up her purse from beside her chair. That simple action somehow loaded with more dignity than anything Bill had managed all night. "And who you are, Bill, is someone who mistakes cruelty for courage, who confuses bullying with bravery. You're someone who uses his platform to punch down instead of lifting people up." Bill was scrambling now, realizing that his show was completely out of his control. "Chrissy, come on, sit back down. Let's talk about this like adults." She turned to look at him one last time, and her expression was almost pitying. "No, Bill. Adults don't behave the way you just behaved. Adults don't invite someone onto their show just so they can attack them. Adults don't mistake being mean for being smart." The finality in her voice was unmistakable. She was done, and everyone knew it. "I came here tonight to promote my cookbook and have a conversation. Instead, I got to see exactly what kind of person you really are. And honestly, I feel sorry for you." With that, she walked toward the exit, her heels clicking on the studio floor with a rhythm that sounded like victory. The audience watched her go, many of them clearly wishing they could follow her. She had entered that studio as Bill's victim and was leaving as his conqueror. Bill sat at his desk, surrounded by the wreckage of his own making. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every moment of his humiliation. He had set out to destroy Chrissy Teigen and had ended up destroying himself instead. The bully had been exposed, the victim had become the victor, and everyone watching had witnessed the exact moment when power shifted from the person who abused it to the person who refused to accept that abuse. As the studio doors closed behind Chrissy, the silence that remained was deafening. Bill Maher had gotten exactly what he deserved. The truth about who he really was, delivered with more class and dignity than he had shown in his entire career. The show would go on, but everyone would remember this as the night the host became the villain and the guest became the hero.